So we'd like to welcome you to today's Educator webinar hosted by the World Affairs Council of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. So today we have three special guests joining us to help discuss how we can educate for the future careers of tomorrow in the global world of work. So this webinar is part of our Skills for Students Future in the World series that was inspired by our 2021 International Education Summit. And you can watch past webinars that we've done here at the Council and past sessions from our International Education Summit on our website, which is globalcincinnati.org. If you're joining us and you're registered, you'll receive some of these resources via email after the webinar concludes. So be sure to check out those previous recordings as well. So today's topic is a critical one for students, particularly those in high school who are in the thick of making decisions about their future and what it looks like. And as educators, with all that we're expected to know and do, it can sometimes be hard to make time for discussions about career exploration, especially if we are in high schools where we're used to being experts in a particular subject area, and students might come to us with questions about other fields and what exists outside of kind of education. So our guests are going to help us discuss how their organizations bring together educators, students, and the business communities and government organizations as well to provide meaningful opportunities for students to explore this global world of work. So I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves here. So in these brief introductions, if you could just share your current role and a little bit about what you did previous to your current position. So we'll go ahead and start with Heather if you're on the call.
Yeah, so I am Heather Ackles. I am the Executive Director of INTERalliance of Greater Cincinnati, and I'll tell you all about that. But I've been here, it'll be 4 years in August, and prior to that, I am a proud Thomas More University graduate and spent 13 years in Kroger Technology doing a ton of different things, from logistics software to healthcare software, and I landed and ended my career there in research and development software.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. And Jeff, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Brokamp. I'm Senior Vice President with Junior Achievement in the Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana area. I've been with JA for about 4 years. And prior to that, I had 34 years as an educator in the Cincinnati Public Schools as a elementary, middle, high school principal and assistant superintendent. So great career there, and most appreciative of all the experiences. And now I get to have some fun at Junior Achievement.
So I do want to frame the session for today as we get into the work of Junior Achievement and ODE and INTERalliance. So we have some session objectives that we'll be sharing later for you. And if you're interested in CEUs, there will be a survey that you can complete at the end of the session in order to receive that credit. But the Council has focused on career exploration and career ready skills as part of our series for a couple different reasons. So the main reason is that our world is more interconnected than ever before, which calls for new challenges and changes. So if you are a high school student living in this current environment, you've seen a lot in the last couple years. The COVID-19 pandemic has really allowed us to see how interconnected the world is. And especially in this period of the Great Resignation and people thinking about what career exploration looks like and really what they want out of their careers, this is something that students are thinking about as well. So technologies change the way that we communicate. We're all gathered together on Zoom, and I think we've gotten used to that. And companies are also able to adapt and adjust to these changes as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and other things happening in the world. If we take a step back from the last 2 years, we had vaccines within a year. We all switched to a work from home environment in a lot of cases. We increased our use of technology. We had to pivot to new ways of reaching the community, our customers, and these are big changes that are going to affect the future world of work. Today's students are also looking at a world that has some economic challenges that you can see in kind of the everyday headlines. So local companies often have global reach. So even though we're here in Northern Kentucky and Greater Cincinnati, a lot of these companies like our Kroger's, our P&G's, they have multinational presence. And so we have to be aware of what's happening in the world. And then we also can't forget about foreign policy concerns. We're all watching news come in from Ukraine, and those conflicts allow us to see how interconnected the world is. Companies deciding to move operations, the cost of commodities, we're all tracking oil prices. And so there are clear examples in the news today of how interconnected we are. And we might have a job in our own backyard, but we have to think about these global concerns as well. So when we focus on skills here at the council, there are really a couple different domains that we're going to use to frame this conversation, and I'll let our speakers kind of talk about how they might touch upon some of these. But the main lens that we use here at the council is the Asia Society's 4 domains of global competency. And so when we're looking at careers, they should encapsulate all 4 of those domains. Students should be able to investigate the world through a variety of different domain-specific skills. I used to tell my students back when I was teaching, we don't learn specific things to remember that for the rest of our lives, but we go to school to develop habits of mind. So how do I think like a scientist? How do I think like someone who's engaged in literature? Those are ways to investigate the world. We have to recognize perspectives, especially when it comes to people of different cultures and how they might perceive the world and how we can best communicate with them. We have to use effective methods of communication. And last month, we talked about communicating ideas in our webinar. So how do we do that with diverse audiences? And then the last piece, which I think a lot of our organizations here can attest to, is that we have to learn by doing. So we have to take action. So there's a lot of different ways to get hands-on experience, even if you're still in high school or, studying toward a particular career. That might be experiential learning in the classroom. It could be service learning. We've got volunteer and internship opportunities with a lot of these organizations. So taking action is a huge part of that. Another framework that we look at here at the council is the P21 or Battelle for Kids 21st Century Skills. And in this framework, we have this green banner, which are really 21st century themes that we should all know. And different literacies might fall in that category as well. So financial literacy, environmental literacy, digital literacy, which I think a lot of our groups here on the call can talk about. But we also have this orange and blue section here. How can we learn and innovate? So those 4 C's of communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity that, really we're going to need in any type of job. But also the life and career skills. So being flexible, taking initiative, having cross-cultural skills, those are things that, can translate to a lot of different types of careers. So in your resource packet that you'll get afterwards, you'll see a little bit more from these organizations and tools and rubrics that they use. One final tool that I wanted to point out before we get into what our speakers do in the field of education is this great tool from the Asia Society, who created that global competency matrix of the 4 domains. This link is also in your resource kit, and this is a way where, if you're thinking about particular careers, how can they actually meet this global competency thread? This is an interactive tool that you can kind of play with and get some examples, even if it's something that's not your field. So for example, if we click on manufacturing, all of these careers are going to have the same 12 competencies, but we can click on those to find out what that would look like within that career. So here we've got manufacturing. We can work productively in teams. They've got an example of a quality assurance professional might have to meet standards of different countries that their products are shipped to. So that would be a way that they interact cross-culturally. Or in healthcare, for example, number 6, demonstrate creativity and innovation. If you're a patient advocate for a hospital and your community includes a large population of Central American immigrants that have limited English capabilities, and they might have fled violence when they came to the United States. How do you use that background knowledge to create an effective training and get them the resources that they need? So I really recommend that you check out this tool. This is a QR code to the resource packet that you'll receive a little bit later from us. So there are a lot of things to explore in there. So I'd like to hand things over to Heather. Heather, as she mentioned earlier, is the executive director with INTERalliance, which really focuses on preparing students for careers in IT and technology. And so Heather, if you'd like to take it away from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to give you any slides. I'm a big believer in just having a conversation. But as I mentioned in my introduction, my background is with Kroger Technology. I actually have a degree in information systems and have been in the technology sector for since I was really 19 years old, actually practicing. So INTERalliance is a regional nonprofit here in the Cincinnati area that is focused on helping high school students really find their passion in technology, show them what careers are available to them, and then help them get there. We really want to create not just technologists, right? I think lots of people have this misconception that a technologist is a coder in the back of a room, behind a cube, whatever, but there is a huge number of opportunities that exist within IT. And so we try to make sure that the students understand what those opportunities are, and then even better, understand the opportunities that exist here for them in our region, and then pair them. Our ultimate goal, beyond just creating technology leaders, is that they also feel comfortable with the level of technology or the specific area of technology that they're going into. So there's a big difference between a software developer and a cybersecurity analyst or a data scientist or a project manager. So we try to break down what we call the IT ABCs and help the students understand before they jump into their secondary education, what they're getting into and how to get there. How do we do that? We do that through a lot of different ways. We talked about internships. We have about 100 paid internships that happen over the summer with some of our region's best employers. Think P&G, GE, GE Aviation, and others. And those, like I said, are paid. They're 10-week engagements, and they allow the students to completely identify what they want to do and how they want to do it. They're in positions where it is completely hands-on, so they're not running to Starbucks, they're not jockeying the copy machine, right? They're absolutely doing something tech-based. And the end of it, right, for juniors and seniors, I want them to walk away and go, ah, man, I love cybersecurity. This is what I want to do with my life. Or, ah, man, I hate cybersecurity. This is not what I want to do with my life. But you know what? I got to do Python, and Python was awesome. So maybe next summer, I want to start looking at Python, or instead of going into a cyber field or a cyber degree, I really want to focus in a software development area, but at least give them the skills and the tools that they need to be successful in making those decisions. There's nothing worse than someone having a bad experience and deciding that all technology is off the table. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times now, I've been in technology for a very long time. My ultimate background, I grew up in rural America, out in Brown County, Ohio, on a farm. We still don't have broadband internet, right? We had dial-up internet when I was in high school, and we prayed every day that it didn't go down thanks to a giant storm or something. So I wasn't, I guess, raised in a highly technical environment. So as I picked my degree, a lot of folks really ask me, like, why do you think you're going to be successful? What experiences do you have that's going to make you successful there? And if I were being superficial, or if I didn't have great mentors in my life that said, every experience that you've had is going to make you successful here, then I would have said none, because I didn't have technology courses in high school. I didn't have them in middle school, and I certainly didn't have them on the farm. But what I could do was solve problems. I could be very vigorous in my work. I was dedicated to getting something done. I had no problem getting up early in the morning and taking care of animals. So I had a lot of life skills that made me very well equipped to the technology industry. So I leveraged those, and technology is something you can learn. some of those softer skills are things that you really have to grow over time. So if I'm talking to you about what's important for your students to learn and to think about, one, your soft skills are critical. If you're an eternal learner and you're interested in innovation, technology is a great field for you. But it is not a field where you can discount those soft skills that are needed to be successful. And I mean, those are your innovative thinking, your ability to communicate, your project management capabilities, your emotional intelligence. If I got flustered and upset and walked away from every scenario in Kroger where someone told me they didn't like my idea or they disagreed with me, I probably would have quit and God only knows where I am, right? Because one of the best things about innovation and best things about working in technology is that there's a million different opinions that come to the table, and it's important that you can collaborate. So teaching those students how to engage in a team and how to engage in ways that are meaningful for everyone else is critical, but also being humble, right? Sometimes you're not going to have the best answer. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but you have to be able to kind of take that and roll with it. Another thing that is somewhat new, I think, and unfortunately new as we're adding into a lot of different places, and specifically as we're looking at world affairs, you have to have students who have a broad perspective in the world. So they need to be able to think about, if I am a student engaged, or if I'm an individual engaging in this piece of technology who has a disability when it comes to sight or disability when it comes to hearing, how do we make sure that that is equally accessible? And it doesn't even have to be as something as, direct as, blindness or deafness. It could be autism or light sensitivity or dyslexia. So you have to take a lot of those things into place. And then obviously when you are doing new softwares and new innovations, you have to think about cultural differences and language differences. So there's a lot of pieces to that as well. But when it comes to INTERalliance, we try to partner our students with the companies that are here that have a lot of those world experiences. And I know I mentioned P&G and GE because they are global organizations in our backyard, but we offer those. We offer a ton of professional development opportunities. So again, taking those students and creating them not just to be great technologists, but becoming great technology leaders. So you'll see resume writing, mock interviews, LinkedIn training, presentation skills. We try to make sure that they're comfortable when they walk in the door. We also do Tech Olympics, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tech Olympics, but it is the nation's largest technology conference for high school students, led by high school students. So as I mentioned, those project management skills are critical. An organization like INTERalliance or so many others where the students get to take that leadership role is incredibly important for them because they get to make the decisions. So what that means is that they get to make the decisions, and if they're great, hooray, they're great and they made great decisions. But if maybe they didn't hit the mark quite on point, hooray, they get to learn from that. So they get to learn from iteration. They get to learn from, maybe missing the mark or hitting the mark. And INTERalliance allows our students to really lead at the forefront, and they pick the speakers, they pick the content, and they drive the whole organization kind of in general. Beyond that, we also do job shadowing opportunities. Keep your eyes out. Definitely, I know that Erica just sent that out. We typically fill up a job shadow in about a half hour. So definitely follow us on all the channels if you're interested in that. But a job shadow is a really great way for a student to have a one-on-one conversation with a business partner and just ask them like, hey, Matt, I see that you have a degree in English. How the heck are you here as a director of cybersecurity? And that's an important question because you're always going to be there, right? You've decided at some point, this is the path, my direction, my career is going, and you may pivot. If someone asked third grade Heather, do you think you're ever going to lead a nonprofit? Third grade Heather would have said, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to be the world's next astronaut. Well, I've never been to space, but I feel like I love and have found my home here in nonprofit. So being able to help them navigate those changes and not feel like once you have a goal that it's the end all be all. Either way, that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. I personally love INTERalliance because it allows our high school students to rise to the top. It helps them see what they need to do to be successful and all of the talent that they have inside. but also it allows our teachers to collaborate together and learn from one another and figure out what's working over here or what tools they're using to bring some of this work-based learning or project-based learning into the classroom and collaborate. So I'm obviously a big fan of INTERalliance. I encourage everyone to come and spend time with us. We are right now in the middle of intern season. So if you have students who are interested, all that you need to have in order to apply is a resume and a LinkedIn profile. And if you don't have either of those, we can help you work through them. And then we are placing students almost 100 positions this summer. They make minimum $12 an hour. And I give my personal commitment that they will at minimum be doing hands-on technology work, and they're going to be fulfilled, and we take care of them. So whatever they need, we make sure that they have it. If they need transportation, we'll figure it out. If they're in person and they need a suit and tie, we will help and figure out how to get them that information, so that we never want there to be a barrier to their success. So we just ask that they raise their hand and tell us what they need, and we'll help them do it.
Awesome, Heather. Thank you so much. So if you want to reach out to Heather, you can use the link at INTERalliance and contact Heather, who is the Executive Director of the INTERalliance of Greater Cincinnati. I know Heather has to jump off the call, but if you have any questions, you can send them to me or Heather. Heather's got her email in the chat, and it is internship season, and they are great internships for high school students, really a chance for them to do meaningful work. And INTERalliance is a really great student-run organization. So we're really happy that you could join us today, Heather.
Nope, thanks for having me. And I apologize that I have to run. I think many of you can understand I have a sick kid, so I need to go do the doctor thing. But thank you so much. And if you need anything, please reach out. Erica and I have worked together for quite a while, and she's fantastic. So I believe that if you need anything, one of us, Cassie, Jeff, one of the four of us can take care of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. So we'll switch over to Jeff Brocramp as he gets his camera and everything turned on. And Jeff is going to tell us a little bit more about education programs at Junior Achievement of OKI Partners. So if you are from out of the region, that's Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana.
Erica, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for including me in this important conversation. My name is Jeff Brockamp, and I'm Senior Vice President at Junior Achievement in the Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana area. We're one of 105 affiliates across the country that are JA affiliates, and then there are many more worldwide. I'd like to share a quick PowerPoint with you here. Okay, good. So again, thank you all for being here. What I'd like to do is just kind of give you an idea of what Junior Achievement does, in case you're not aware. Junior Achievement's purpose is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in the global economy. So it's very much aligned with this conversation today. And we had some, pretty focused and targeted beginnings back in 1919. Junior Achievement was founded by 3 people from Massachusetts. Probably the most well-known of them would be Theodore Vail. He's the president of AT&T. But these 3 gentlemen felt it was very important for students, young people, to have an experience in business and financial literacy in particular. And so they started a program called the Company Program. And this was a program where students were able to, along with a mentor, form a group. It was an after-school program. Students would actually form a company that from the conceptual stage all the way through production. They'd sell stock. And ultimately, at the end of their experience, they would sell the company and liquidate everything. So it was a scoop to nuts kind of experience in small business. And that concept that started back in 1919 has evolved over 100 years later to a situation where we have expanded beyond just financial literacy, but also entrepreneurship, which really the Company Program, involved early. And then career and work readiness. So there's the 3 pillars. We work with students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. And all the programming that we provide for schools is free to the schools. There's no charge to any of the programming. We're a 501c3 and we're funded by corporate donations. We work with foundations, we work with private donations. And the objective is to provide programming for schools at no charge. We have a particular mission to extend our programs in areas that are underrepresented in terms of these kind of programs. And so we find ourselves working a lot in the urban core, but we also, serve schools well beyond the urban core and out in the suburbs and the rural areas. Just in Ohio, we have, I think, 17 counties now that we serve. We have 9 in Kentucky and then 4 in Eastern Indiana. And the programs vary, and we'll talk about that as we go. But we're not just a U.S. operation. I mentioned we have 105 affiliates in the United States, but there are many more affiliates worldwide. So if you're curious how many students we serve throughout the course of a year worldwide, we're over 10 million students in 100 countries and over 470,000 volunteers. So you might ask, well, okay, you have programming in schools, volunteers, how does it all work? Well, there's really 2 types of programs. The first kind is the traditional program. That's really an offshoot of the original programming back in 1919. Typically, the way it works is we provide a menu of programs that apply to those 3 pillars that I mentioned. And schools will identify the programs that they wish to have in their classroom. They'll contact us through a program request. That's an electronic form. Schools will then determine to what degree they would like volunteer participation. The volunteers in the program are kind of our secret sauce at JA. We train our volunteers to present programs in classrooms and in some cases outside of the classrooms. And so teachers will determine based on the program they have what degree of volunteer participation they would like. And once they identify that, then we will identify volunteers if needed, and we will train those volunteers to be prepared to go into the classroom to work with the students on those programs. The majority of our programs are anywhere from 5 to 7 lessons, and schools will typically schedule those 1 lesson a week over the course of a couple months. And it's just a great opportunity to get professionals from the community next to the students, not only to present new information, but also to reinforce the information that the teachers are providing. And those of you who are teachers out there know it's always great to have someone from the community who the students recognize as an expert to come in and reinforce what you're telling them. And students think to themselves, wow, I guess that teacher that was telling me that, really knew what she was talking about. And so the volunteers serve that purpose as well. The program materials are delivered to the school. And it used to be that they were, exclusively print materials that come in kits that go to the school. The volunteer picks up those kits, if you will, and prepares and then presents the lessons. But we'll talk in just a minute about the fact that our program has expanded to a number of other delivery options besides a volunteer in the classroom and the hard copy kits. And as I mentioned, all the programs are free to the schools. So the other type of program that we offer, I guess, would fit best in the category of experiential. These programs really represent capstone experiences after the student has some type of programming in the classroom. So students will prepare in the classroom for some type of authentic experience. By authentic, I mean where students are learning, whether it be on the job training or elements that are really applicable to their lives in ways where they can put their hands on it and really experience it firsthand. So the way this works is that lessons are taught at the school prior to the event, and then students will travel with the school during the school day to a particular location, depending on what that project is, and then follow-up lessons are provided after the event. And this is something that has changed in the last 100 years. If you remember that company program I mentioned, that was the original program, was an after-school program. The large majority of our programs now are done during the school day. It was really back in the mid-70s where we introduced programs in the classroom. And as you can imagine, as time has gone on, especially those of you who are teachers, and we all understand the pressure teachers are under to accommodate the state standards. All of our programs are aligned to state standards, and we do alignment pieces for every program for each state, each of the 50 states in the United States. So we have a central office in Colorado Springs, California, or Colorado, excuse me, that provides these alignment pieces and scope and sequence and sends those out to the schools. So the picture that you see on the screen right now is an event that we just held last week. This is actually an event, the same event that happened a couple of years ago, the actual photo, but we just closed one of these events last week. We had about 4,000 students at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center from about 40 different schools from Kentucky and Ohio. And this is called Inspire to Hire. And the way this program works is that students are given a curriculum, teachers are given a curriculum prior to the event. The curriculum is communicated through a electronic link. And then the teachers can open up this link and all of the materials can be downloaded and presented to students in hard copy, or the link can be provided for the students. And the students can do all of the activities electronically through fillable PDFs and videos and so forth that are accessible through this link. And so we designed this curriculum specifically for the Inspire to Hire program. And then at the end of the curricular programming that happened in the schools the month prior to the event, the students all come to a location where exhibitors that represent companies from the region are there to provide hands-on experiences that show students what they do, what their business is. This particular operation is obviously a healthcare facility that is helping students understand, some particular element of health. In this case, intubating, and they were practicing on a mannequin. So, in an event like this, we'll have in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 exhibitors that represent regional companies. The first day of the event, 9th and 10th graders will attend, and it's an exploratory event where the exhibitors understand that these students are just starting to really, hone in on what they might be interested in pursuing after high school, whether it's a post-secondary education or an actual career. The second day is for 11th and 12th graders. This is the first day is the Inspire part. The second day is the Hire part. So the students will come to the event with resumes prepared, with their elevator pitches prepared to be able to meet exhibitors as potential candidates for jobs that the exhibitors have. And a good number of the exhibitors at the event are actually hiring high school graduate students either as interns or bring them in as apprentices, or in some cases, full-time jobs. And this is one of the areas that has changed dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years. And that is the jobs that offer living wages to students whose education does not go beyond a high school diploma. There are a lot of jobs these days who are looking either to hire students out of high school and then train them extensively, or to put them through college under some type of an apprentice or internship role, hoping then that the students will become permanent employees, after their educational programming is over and after having done, a number of years of work with that organization. It's an employees market right now, as you all probably are aware, but students also have to be well informed about what the opportunities are. So the objective of this event, this Inspire to Hire event, is to help students explore opportunities and to give them firsthand experiences in the interview process and the process of meeting potential employers and networking, either for jobs immediately or sometime in the future. So that's an example of one of these experiential events or activities or programs that we have. The other kind of activities can involve, we have a mock interview situation, we have job shadowing, we have facilities around the country where students can attend to engage in a real life business activity, or being a citizen in the community and how that interacts with the businesses and so forth. So there's all kinds of experiential events that we offer as a different kind or a second kind of experience that students can have with junior achievement. So in the last couple of years especially, we have expanded our delivery options. In the past, it was strictly hard copy kits. Volunteers are trained to go into schools with those kits. All of the materials that the volunteers need are in those kits, and they're built for 32 students in the classroom. Now, just after a couple of years of pandemic, it's really forced us to be better, and we're emerging from the pandemic a much more viable organization in terms of options that we provide for classrooms and teachers. So we have all the traditional program as I described, but we have a whole menu of virtual and remote programs that can be offered. And we have hybrid programs that allow volunteers to engage classrooms electronically or through recorded options as well. So there's all kinds of options that teachers have with JA programming. And one area, Erica, that we've really, come to understand the importance of over the course of the last few years, especially, is helping students understand not just what's available to them in terms of career opportunities, and how their skills and interests might dovetail into those opportunities, but also helping the students develop a good sense of self, understanding, who am I? What am I really interested in? Helping them understand just how important it is for them to have a good understanding of what they really want, and then develop interpersonal skills and soft skills that allow them to really articulate who they are effectively to potential employers. These what might be referred to as softer elements of training for students in the area of career readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. Sometimes the term soft skills suggests that maybe they're not as important, and they're just as important as technical skills that are involved in employment. So we're well aware of that, and our ambition is to help students understand that as well. So this, if you're interested in the kind of programs, that JA in our area, our footprint, the OKI JA affiliate has, we have this link that we'd encourage, and I can put in the chat afterwards, but I encourage you to, or Eric, if you'd like to do that as well, that'd be great. This is a virtual document that allows you to page through and see our programs. You'll see the ordering process for the programs. And again, I'd like to mention that if you see a program that you like and you'd like to order something for your classroom, there's no strings attached. We'll get that order. There's no charge. And then we'll, through the request that you make, we'll know, what delivery option you prefer and go from there. And then I'd like to also say that JAUSA has a very nice site that is, it's partially nested into our site. But if you want to go directly to the programs page for JAUSA, if you're not in Ohio or in our portion of Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana, you might want to go to this site. And this will give you a very broad view of the programs that JA offers, and it will give you scope and sequence as well as state standard alignment. So we'd encourage you to just explore what we do. We design programs to what schools and school districts need in their areas. So this isn't just a here's our product, you can plug and play. If it doesn't work for you, too bad. We will often build hybrid programs and develop new programming in an R&D kind of format that will help school districts address the needs as they articulate them to us. So please take a look at our programs, and I'd be happy to answer any questions electronically or here in this meeting. So Erica, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jeff. So Junior Achievement has a variety of programs, and you've got links to both the OKI affiliate and then also the national organization. And I do want to reiterate what Jeff said about programs. There are so many programs available for free. When I was a second-year teacher, my principal came in and said, hey, we've got some kids interested in economics and nobody's taught that before, so now it's you. And we didn't have money for books or anything or training. And we went straight to JA and got everything that we needed. And I ended up loving teaching economics. So, that's a great place if you're interested in like maybe a new course. Definitely look at some of the things that they offer because it's really easy to implement. Okay. So we'll go ahead and switch over to Cassie. Thanks for joining us, Cassie. And Cassie is with the Ohio Department of Education, and specifically, she is the director of the Office of Graduate Success. So she has a big role and responsibility in making sure that all of the students in Ohio are ready for their futures after high school, whether it be college or career or civic life. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, Cassie, and a little bit more about what you offer for teachers and students.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Erica. And always appreciate hearing from Jeff and Heather too. So it'll be a hard act to follow, but thanks for having me. So like you mentioned, my name is Cassie Paulsgrove. My prior life, I was an agriculture education teacher. So I taught in a career technical education pathway, students grades 8 through 12. And we did a lot of hands-on experiential learning and a lot of, performance-based assessments and all of that good stuff. So, I come to this work at the Ohio Department of Education with a classroom level experience. And, being able to be an agriculture teacher really kind of opened my eyes to what a really intentional classroom experience looks like for students that brings in the real world and really helps prepare students for what lies ahead. And one of my goals and, my tenure here at the department is to make sure that all students have an experience like that. And, today I want to specifically talk with you about one particular program that might help students really navigate their pathway to developing those professional skills, but also just kind of mention to you how the state really wants to support your mission and vision. So it's interesting, Heather provided you like a very focused local example of how you might get engaged in this career readiness work. And then Jeff provides you even, a bigger scope, maybe regionally positioned way to get involved and even across the state and country. And I just really want to reiterate today that the Ohio Department of Education is really supportive of this career focused movement for all students. And one way that we enable that is through the Ohio Department of Education, Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. So many of you may know that are listening, the class of 2023 graduates are held to a different set of graduation requirements. As a part of those graduation requirements, every student must earn a minimum of 2 diploma seals. And one of those seals can be the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, which Heather, Erica, and Jeff all have great examples of programs that can help students earn the readiness seal through demonstrating that they have these professional skills that will empower them for the future world of work. And I'm going to share with you just one resource so that we can kind of talk through at a high level what this readiness seal is all about. In a nutshell, the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal is really a formal mentorship program for high school students to take advantage of. And there's a lot of ways that local schools can help students identify mentors and then really focus the work of how the mentors are having conversations with students. And the readiness seal is meant to signal that a student has demonstrated proficiency in 15 professional skills, really 14 professional skills. And then there's also a drug-free pledge that students will sign to earn their readiness seal. And so when the readiness seal was launched, we worked hard to develop a proficiency rubric so that mentors, teachers, students, families had an idea of what the compass was on how well are students doing in these 14 professional skills. And so, there's a lot of different options of frameworks for professional skills that exist out there. So the way that we landed on these particular skills was surveying our business community across the state of Ohio and asked them, what are the essential skills that you would like to see students walk in with on day one of their job with you. And this, really led to the creation of this readiness seal. And through a lot of research and a lot of writing, we've identified what that proficiency level really looks like. So when we look at the readiness seal, reliability is, one particular skill that we're looking for. And the way that this rubric works is it gives mentors, parents, families, teachers, and the student themselves, hopefully, a guide on what does it mean to be proficiently reliable. And really the descriptions in this rubric are still fairly broad. And the way that students demonstrate that reliability in this case should be in these experiential learning things that, both the World Affairs Council and, Jeff through JA can offer. So, teachers can be mentors on the seal. Workplace supervisors can be mentors on the seal. Community-based, faith-based leaders can be mentors on the seal. Those of you that are tuning in here today can be mentors on the seal. I have yet to have anyone take me up on this, but I would love to myself be a readiness seal mentor someday. So if you've got a kid who's just in desperate need of that third mentor, sign me up. But really the rubric is meant to provide a more objective way to talk to students about their progress toward becoming proficient or hopefully experts at these professional skills that employers are so desperately communicating to any and everyone they can that they need students to be able to demonstrate in the workplace. So again, the 14 skills that the readiness seal is looking for demonstrated proficiency in is reliability, work ethic, punctuality, discipline, teamwork and collaboration, professionalism, learning agility, critical thinking, problem solving skills, leadership, and creativity and innovation. And so again, this rubric really is meant to be a compass to help any and everyone involved in a student's Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal journey on what it might look like to both get a baseline assessment of where students are on their demonstration of proficiency in these skills, but then more importantly, how to help grow them more toward that expert side of the rubric. So again, the Readiness Seal will really help students on their pathway to graduation, especially for the class of 2023 and beyond. It is one of the 12 seal options, and it is a state-supported seal option for students. I hope you'll see that it's a valuable experience for students to have those 3 identified mentors. The mentors need to come from 2 of 3 areas too. So all 3 mentors can't be educators. At least one needs to come from the community or from the workplace. But the goal here is really to put caring adults in the lives of students that are having focused conversations with them about how to improve in these areas. And Jeff and Heather and Erica, you all know the idea is to put students in these real world, or at least simulated real world experiences, so that they can show you that they are, proficient or developing, or, maybe already are an expert in some of these professional skills that businesses are looking for. The benefit here also, I'm sure all of you know, is that these skills transcend career fields. So I love that Erica has having folks share their career journeys themselves, because a career pathway looks different for every single human being, right? And as Heather mentioned before, if you would have asked 3rd grade Heather if she'd be, involved in a nonprofit, she'd be like, huh? So that's really how it happens for so many of us. And if we can focus on what skills we're developing in students while exposing them to their options, we can really help prepare them for a career that transcends industry areas. So if you're, going like me from education into government, but you can reliably demonstrate these skills, then you'll be set up for success no matter the career field that you choose. So I really appreciate the chance to come talk about the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. There's tons of resources on the website, our website at education.ohio.gov, on how to measure lightly these skills. There's also mentor guides, teacher guides. There's the validation form that students need to turn in. And we'd love to work with any and everyone on developing what that Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal mentorship program really looks like across the state, but also in Cincinnati. So thank you so much, Erica, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Cassie. I love how you walked through that Ohio Means Job Readiness Seals and some of the competencies, because, those competencies, I might not know anything about agriculture education, but those are skills that I can reiterate with students, that transcend a lot of different career paths. So I think sometimes teachers get a little bit anxious when we talk about graduation requirements, and we automatically think, oh man, what test do they have to take? And it's not necessarily that. You guys are doing awesome work at ODE. So there are lots of links in what we'll send you related to the readiness seals. And the second link that's in the chat, there are more kind of diploma credentials beyond the Ohio Meets Job category as well. So if you want to take a look at those and what students are required to do nowadays, or even if you're a member community and you want to be a mentor for some of these seals, just let us know and we're happy to coordinate that. So in our final moments here, folks that are joining us on Facebook Live or here, feel free to add questions or comments in the chat. But Jeff and Cassie, I have just a couple questions for you before we go. If you were thinking of your former self before you got to ODE or before you got to junior achievement, in the industry that you were in, and if you had to pick out a example of how you used global competency or cultural knowledge, do you have a story that you can share for our audience? Whoever would like to share theirs first.
I'm happy to a little bit. So, and I'm sure all of you struggle with this too. So to pinpoint the exact industry that like I would consider my career to have fallen in before coming to this role, it toes the line between the agriculture industry and the education industry.
Right.
And so much of agricultural practice, so much of the content that, quality practices in raising livestock, for example, are worldly. Learning about the economics of the commodity market for agriculture is worldly. And so much of understanding how that works on a global market for agriculture is very eye-opening when you jump then to government, right? So understanding the politics of how the market's changing, or your relationships across the world, and the languages that are spoken, across all of our governmental agencies. It's really eye-opening and interesting to compare what a global market looks like in each industry. So that would just be one thing that popped into my mind about your question.
Awesome.
I
Thank
think
you.
that from my experience as an educator, there were critical moments in history where the flow of information, changed dramatically. The printing press was an obvious example. It allowed people to gain access to written materials, and they didn't have to rely on people, imparting information on them. The advent of the internet is a very similar type of development. It allows students, young people, people of all ages, to be able to access a huge amount of information. There was a critical moment in my experience as an educator where it became clear that students could tote, the equivalent of libraries of encyclopedias around with them in that little box that we call a cell phone. And I remember so vividly teachers saying, well, this student worked ahead of the lesson, and when I went to present, he already knew everything. And it was tough for us professionals, especially some of us older heads, to wrap our mind around the fact that the role as teacher, with the flow of information being what it is, becomes much more than it used to be a practice of helping students understand how to access information and apply it at the right times. And no longer are the adults the fount of all information, but that we have other kinds of responsibilities as educators. And that same concept really applies to the student's place in the world economy. The student right here in Cincinnati can be a candidate for a job halfway around the world and perform that job very effectively without ever leaving their living room. And it's a message to students that it's really quite a burden on younger people today, that with the expanse of opportunities, there's also a responsibility for that student and that young person to understand more than ever as an American citizen the expectations, the customs, and the norms of societies in which they will wander into through this incredible opportunity that we call the internet. And so when you talk about the world economy, it's so impacted by opportunities that exist now for kids that didn't exist 20 and 30 years ago, primarily through technology. And so not only do teachers have responsibilities, but students have responsibilities as they grow to look beyond the borders of their state, their city, their state, their country, and into the expectations and norms and so forth that exist worldwide. So there's never been more implications for young people relative to world affairs as it relates to employment and preparation for employment. It's a very exciting time. It's also a very new time. And so we all have things to learn, from the students to the teachers to the parents. And frankly, I think it's a great time to be alive on this earth, but it's also a little more complicated than it has been in the past. And so, helping students through that is prime responsibility of educators and organizations like the ODE and JA and INTERalliance and so forth.
Well said, Jeff. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you all have the opportunity to work with a lot of amazing schools and teachers and also businesses here in Ohio. And in Ohio, we have a lot of economic opportunity that I think a lot of other states sleep on Ohio. But here in Cincinnati, we've got a lot of Fortune 500 companies that we can work with. And when you work with those companies, what are some of the new skills or types of jobs that you're seeing now that maybe weren't available to students maybe 10 years ago? Any thoughts on that?
I wouldn't consider this a job just yet, but this is something that I think is a mark of the time that we're in and the open-minded nature of our business partners as we move in and out of the pandemic. Ohio Health recently lowered their age requirement for students to be able to be hired under the age of 18. And so I believe their hiring practices are even at 16 now. And so that was a huge policy change from a major health providing organization that basically said, okay, we see value in high school age workers. And that really has opened the door for us to think more critically about high school internships and how do we get students that job experience ahead of time. So while that's not necessarily, new roles added to a company, it is different hiring practices. And I think it's a real marker of the time that we're in. And hopefully we can take advantage of that as a state.
That's a great point that a lot of teachers might not be realizing at this point. So yeah, a lot of opportunities for younger folks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that some of the career clusters where there's great job opportunity probably wouldn't surprise people when I say that these are areas that involve technology or science related or math related training, and that's always been the case. I think one thing that has changed pretty dramatically is just in the last 20 or 30 years, or maybe even more than that, since A Nation at Risk back in the 70s and all the changes that came about in education as a result of that, really the underlying premise is that there wouldn't really be opportunity for people who didn't have a four-year college education or beyond. And, schools ran with that. Schools are government agencies and they took the lead from, the government programs. And, so we went from comprehensive high schools in many cases that had all kinds of trades, and other types of training to schools that were all college preparatory. And now what's happened today, because of changing birth rates and changing jobs and the capacity of people to take jobs anywhere, is that science and math related, technology related, software programming, coding, those skills are absolutely critical, but that there are non-traditional ways for students to get into those career fields that in some cases do not require a traditional path through a four-year college education and beyond. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that students shouldn't go to college, but what I'm saying is that the means of getting to the end goal of having a job with a living wage that provides opportunity for growth and advancement, the means of getting there, the pathways to get you there are much greater today than they were 20 or 30 years ago. The skills such as being able to work effectively in a team and gain teams solutions through a team of creative people to customize products and services so that the end user has delivery of service in a timely way. The product is high quality. People, the consumer has so many ways these days to access products that the quality of the product and the efficiency and the quality with which we deliver it is so important. So, supply chain and logistics, it's so much a part of what's going on and how products are delivered. And that career field in itself is a career field that has just blown up and will continue to expand because customers want products now delivered to the front door, and they don't want to get up and go to the store. There's just so many ways. It's kind of a customer's business, a customer's world right now, because there's so many ways to get what you want, that there have to be people on the other end figuring out, number one, how do I make my product a quality product? How do I make sure it's deliverable and can get there in a timely fashion? And that requires young people to be able to work with all kinds of folks in the production and delivery chain, no matter what the product is. That it takes patience, flexibility, just that capacity to work with people effectively and draw their good skills out there, and put those together with yours to create a good service. Those skills are more important today than they have ever been. And so it's not just the technical skills, it's those personal skills as well, creativity. These are things that employers are looking for. How can this person solve a problem, and can they do it by drawing in all the resources, people resources, and other kind of resources that companies have at their disposal. It sounds kind of general, maybe vague, but that's what employers are looking for these days. They need people who can solve problems and do it in a way where they build team within their organization.
That's absolutely right. And I did want to highlight real quick before we leave that in the resource packet, the Cleveland Federal Reserve, the branch here locally, actually did a lot of research on economic or opportunity careers, and they have some new lesson plans related to those. So kind of what Jeff and Cassie were talking about earlier, maybe it doesn't require a college education, or maybe eventually it does, but there's a different path to get there. Check that out in our resource packet. I want to thank both of you for joining. You guys are a treasure trove of knowledge and resources for our community, and I really appreciate you joining on the webinar. If you have questions for any of our organizations, you'll see links in your resource packet that will come to you in about an hour via email. And we're just so happy that you've joined us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and weekend.